Welcome to the Morning Walk with Murty Digital Stroll.
Glad to be here.
So imagine you spend your entire weekend meticulously turning off every single privacy-invading toggle on a brand new computer.
Oh, I've been there. It is exhausting.
Right. And then you realize the operating system is still, quietly phoning home in the background anyway. It's just a frustrating, almost universal experience right now.
Yeah, you feel totally out of control of your own hardware.
Exactly. But today, we are looking at a project that completely inverts that reality. We are initiating a Gurukul session to look through what we call the digital prism.
A very necessary lens right now.
It really is. Our mission today is to extract the legacy code of Project Antaryami exactly as it was envisioned by Lead Architect Murty BVNS. We really want to understand the deeper architecture of digital sovereignty.
Yeah, what it actually takes to reclaim your digital workspace. Because when we look through the digital prism, we're trying to see past the glowing rectangles we just stare at all day.
Right.
We want to understand the underlying structural intent. Modern computing, it often feels incredibly fragile, right?
Yeah.
Built on all these dependencies we have absolutely zero control over.
Yeah, it's a house of cards.
But before we go any further, I want to ground this for you listening right now because we are throwing around some heavy terminology early on to make sure we aren't just talking in riddles. What exactly do we mean by a Gurukul session and this legacy code concept from Murty BVNS?
Well, it's a fair question. So historically, a Gurukul was a traditional system of learning. It was a dedicated sanctuary.
Like an isolated campus.
Exactly. Intentionally isolated from the noise and the distractions of the outside world so that focused, profound learning could take place. Lead Architect Murty BVNS's vision of Gurukul 2.0 takes that physical concept and applies it to our digital lives.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, and the legacy code is essentially that foundational philosophy, the idea that your digital workspace should be a sovereign sanctuary, not a billboard or a corporate data mining operation. Well, I recently stumbled across a blueprint that perfectly embodies this legacy code out in the wild. It is an operating system called Shadowfetch Linux, and you can find their documentation over at shadowfetch.com/Linux. Reading through this source text honestly felt like finding a fellow traveler's spark of inspiration in a very dark forest.
Oh, absolutely. It's a genuinely fascinating read and highly practical, too. It gives us a really concrete foundation to apply our digital prism analysis to, showing how those high-level philosophies actually translate into real software engineering.
Exactly. And for you listening, whether you're a creator who's just tired of endless cloud subscriptions, or maybe you're just someone who wants to reclaim your digital privacy but you don't want to lose access to modern AI tools, this is for you.
Spot on. It bridges that gap perfectly.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because before we can talk about the flashy AI tools or, the creative suites this OS offers, we have to look at the bedrock.
The foundation. You can't build a sovereign digital life on a compromised foundation.
Exactly. So we are looking at Shadowfetch Linux version 2.1.1, it's codenamed Umbra. And the very first thing the documentation emphasizes is that it is built honestly as a Debian testing derivative.
Which is a very deliberate choice.
Right. But as someone focused on the logistics of a digital migration, I have to ask, why Debian? Why not build entirely from scratch if you want total control?
Well, building an operating system entirely from scratch is, it's usually an act of pure hubris.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah. It almost always results in a fragmented, unstable mess. Debian is one of the oldest, most battle-tested Linux distributions in existence. By using Debian testing, Shadowfetch is relying on an incredibly robust architecture. But what's fascinating here is their claim that 99% of the package archive comes straight from Debian upstream.
Meaning they aren't taking the Debian code and mutating it into something completely unrecognizable?
Precisely. They are actively avoiding forking the code unless it's mathematically necessary. Because when developers fork a project, they split off and rewrite the underlying system.
Which I imagine creates a ton of extra work.
A complete maintenance nightmare down the line. By respecting the open source lineage of Debian, they ensure long-term stability. If you know how to use basic Debian commands, you already know how to manage Shadowfetch.
That honors the whole Gurukul 2.0 idea, right? True learning in a sovereign space.
Exactly. It's an honest foundation because it doesn't try to lock you into some new proprietary ecosystem. It simply layers a highly curated vision on top of an already solid, respected base.
And that vision is intensely built around the concept of being private by default. Getting a new OS today usually feels like moving into a glass house where the builder installed like a bunch of cameras that you have to manually run around and take over.
That's the perfect analogy.
Shadowfetch feels like buying a fortress where the security system is already armed and the blinds are drawn the moment you boot it up.
Yeah, they enforce that sanctuary mechanically. They aren't just, asking you to blindly trust a 5-page privacy policy.
Right. So let's break down those mechanics. Out of the box, the UFW firewall is toggled on, ME address randomization is active, and they use a hardened systol. Let's take ME address randomization first.
Sure.
How does that actually protect a user in a real-world, everyday scenario?
So every network card in your laptop has a physical identifier baked into the hardware. That is your ME address.
Like a digital license plate.
Exactly. So whenever you connect to a public Wi-Fi network, say at a coffee shop or an airport, that network logs your specific MSE address. Over time, those logs can theoretically be aggregated to map your physical movements across an entire city.
Wow, that is creepy.
It is. But Shadowfetch scrambles that identifier by default at the software level. So to the network router, your laptop looks like a brand new, completely anonymous device every single time you connect.
Oh, so it just cuts the tracking thread before it can even be woven.
Exactly.
I love that. And what about this hardened systol for those of us who aren't, kernel developers? What is a systol? Are we talking about literal switches in the software?
That's actually a great way to visualize it. So the Linux kernel is the core engine of the operating system, and systel is the interface that lets administrators flip switches to change how that engine behaves on the fly.
Okay, I follow.
A standard Linux kernel leaves certain networking features open for maximum compatibility. But some of those open features can be exploited by malicious actors who are trying to, say, overload your system or intercept your data.
So hardening it means?
Hardening the system means they have gone in and preemptively flipped those specific switches to the closed or restrictive position. They're tightening the parameters against known network vulnerabilities.
And all of this happens without requiring you to set up a user account with an email address. The software sends absolutely zero usage metrics home.
Zero.
And it wraps this whole fortress in a very deliberate visual identity. The KDE Plasma 6 desktop is themed end-to-end in what they call the Umbra look.
Yeah, that shadow and gold theme.
Yeah, it's so cohesive. From the moment the GRUB bootloader splashes on your screen to the login window to the desktop itself, it's unified.
And looking through the digital prism, that cohesion is way more than just aesthetics. A unified environment reduces cognitive load. When the interface is visually consistent, the tool essentially disappears, It allows the creator to focus entirely on the work itself.
Which is the whole point of a sanctuary. But, okay, we spend the first segment talking about turning this OS into a locked fortress.
Right.
A secure, beautiful fortress is completely useless if it's empty inside. We need to transition from how the system protects you to what it actually equips you with.
The fun part.
Exactly, because moving away from mainstream operating systems is usually just a nightmare friction. Which brings us to the actual payload of this project. The Shadowfetch 2.1.1 ISO download is a massive 4.51 gigabytes.
A hefty file, yeah.
I have to be honest, when I saw that number, my initial reaction was pure skepticism.
Man.
In a world where everyone wants a minimalist, lightweight setup, isn't pre-packing all these heavy tools just like a different kind of bloatware? Or is this a white glove moving service for a digital migration?
I completely understand the skepticism, but we really need to draw a sharp distinction here. This is not bloatware. It is a curated craftsman's workshop.
Okay, how so?
Well, bloatware is software installed against your will to serve the financial interests of the vendor, like a trial version of a terrible antivirus program or unremovable shortcuts to shopping sites that just clutter your screen.
Right, the stuff that actively fights for your system resources and your attention.
Exactly. Shadowfetch, on the other hand, is preloading the exact open source tools a creator would inevitably spend an entire weekend hunting down, downloading, and configuring anyway.
So they're saving you that weekend.
Yes. They are providing that white glove moving service you mentioned. They give you the creator's arsenal right out of the box so you can start working on day one. We're talking 2D and photo tools like GIMP, Krita, and Darktable. Audio and video like Audacity, Kdenlive, OBS Studio.
Even 3D and color stuff, right? Like Blender and FreeCAD.
Exactly.
Let's look at a specific example to see if this actually saves time in the real world. The documentation mentions pre-configured support for 3D modeling and color management, and they specifically cite a tool called DisplaySecal.
Oh, yes.
Now, getting color profiles perfectly synced across monitors on Linux used to mean while spending a weekend crying into a terminal window.
It was notoriously awful.
How exactly does Shadowfetch solve this out of the box?
So color management on Linux has historically been a massive pain point for graphic designers and video editors. Usually you have to manually install a color management daemon, figure out all these convoluted dependencies, configure your ICC profiles, and just pray it all syncs with your desktop environment.
Sounds like a headache.
It is. But Shadowfetch pre-configures those daemons for you and integrates DisplayCal directly into the KDE Plasma environment. The underlying libraries you need to read professional color calibration hardware are already active.
No way.
Yeah, you skip the terminal configuration entirely. You just plug in your calibrator and go.
That alone saves hours of frustration. But, the biggest point of friction in any digital migration isn't usually the creative apps, it's the web browser.
Oh, absolutely. The browser is the operating system for a lot of people.
The browser is where our modern digital lives actually live. Moving browsers feels like moving houses.
Which is exactly why their browser migration assistant is such a vital piece of engineering. It tackles the most anxiety-inducing part of switching OSs, which is the fear of losing your digital keys and your map of the internet.
So the documentation says it privately validates your bookmark and password exports, it stages them, and then handles something called temporary Flatpak access for the Brave browser.
Right.
What is a Flatpak, and why is this whole staging process even necessary?
Well, a Flatpak is a universal package format for Linux that runs applications in a sandbox.
Meaning it's separated from everything else.
Exactly. The app is isolated from the core operating system. So the browser migration assistant takes your exported HTML file of bookmarks and your CSV file of passwords from your old machine. It stages those files in a secure temporary directory.
Okay, I'm with you.
It then uses a Flatpak version of the Brave browser to import that data safely without granting the browser sweeping permissions to read your entire hard drive.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and once the data is imported, it locks the doors behind it.
It's like having a trusted archivist pack up your old library and place every single book on the exact corresponding shelf in your new home, but without letting the moving company wander through your bedrooms to do it.
That's exactly it.
And keeping that new home maintained is handled by something they call the control center. It uses plain language health checks, so you can manage safe updates and take system snapshots all in one centralized place, completely avoiding the command line if you want to.
Because a sovereign learning environment shouldn't require you to have a computer science degree just to keep the lights on. The control center completely abstracts the complexity of system maintenance. It respects the user's time and energy.
Okay, so we have the secure foundation. We have the creator's arsenal fully stocked. Now I see why those prerequisites matter so much. You can't safely invite an autonomous AI into your computer unless you've already barred the doors to the outside internet.
Exactly.
Which brings us to Sovereign AI and Agent Studio. Having the tools is step one. Having an autonomous assistant to help you master those tools without sending a single byte of your data to a corporate server farm is the true evolution of Project Antaryami.
Yes. Here's where it really challenges the current narrative. Right now, AI is almost exclusively a black box in the cloud. You type a prompt, it gets sent to a massive server, they process your requests, they probably train their future models on your ideas, and then they beam an answer back.
But Shadowfetch is different.
Shadowfetch is agent-ready, on device. It runs 100% locally.
Here's where it gets really interesting. That means the neural network is executing on your physical hardware. If you physically unplug your router from the wall, the AI still functions perfectly.
Yes.
But this raises a massive, pointed question. This OS states its system requirements are a 64-bit by 86 CPU and a minimum of 4 gigabytes of RAM, though 8 gigabytes is recommended.
Right.
Let's be real here. By chaining these AI agents locally to a machine that might only have 4 to 8 gigabytes of RAM, do we actually get a useful, capable assistant? Or is this a heavily compromised, kind of dumbed-down experience compared to what you get from the cloud giants?
Okay, let's be realistic. An 8-gigabyte machine is not going to instantly generate a hyper-realistic 4K video from a text prompt like a multi-million-dollar server farm would.
Right, that requires massive compute.
It's a completely different paradigm.
Yeah.
But by using highly quantized lightweight models, it's exceptionally fast at doing text-based scripting, data synthesis, and executing OS commands.
What does quantized mean in this context?
Quantization essentially compresses the neural network. It makes it smaller and faster without losing its core logic capabilities. Furthermore, they support NVIDIA, AMD, and Intel GPUs out of the box. They automatically configure the proprietary stacks to maximize whatever compute power you actually do have.
So they offer a lightweight model called OpenClaw for general tasks with a really friendly onboarding. But the standout here is an agent called Hermes, which was developed by Noose Research.
Yes, Hermes is fascinating.
The documentation says Hermes is a self-improving agent that actually writes its own skills as you work.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, think about the implications of that for Gurukul 2.0. Having an agent like Hermes operating entirely on your local machine completely changes the relationship between human and computer.
Because it's learning alongside you.
Right. It transforms the machine from a passive pane of glass into a really intimate, active collaborator.
But if you're listening right now, you might be thinking, wait, an AI writing its own code on my hard drive sounds like the start of a sci-fi horror movie.
It does sound a bit risky at first glance.
Yeah, like how exactly does Shadowfetch prevent this AI from accidentally formatting my drive because it misunderstood a prompt? I don't want my home folder turning into an unstructured experiment.
And that is exactly why they built Agent Studio. Think of Agent Studio like giving a highly capable assistant a perfectly equipped, entirely soundproof room.
Okay.
They have a desk, calculators, pens, paper. They can create, calculate, and test absolutely anything they want inside that room.
Right.
But they do not possess the physical key to open the door and walk out into your private bedroom, which in this case is your home folder.
Let's look at a concrete use case to see how that soundproof room actually functions. Say I am a creator working in Blender, which we know comes pre-installed. I have a massive 3D scene, and I need to automate a really tedious color grading and lighting task across 50 different camera angles.
A very common, very tedious task.
How does Hermes help me do that safely?
You would open Agent Studio and present the problem to Hermes. Hermes understands Python, which is the scripting language that Blender uses. So inside its soundproof room, Hermes analyzes your request and writes a custom Python script designed to iterate through Blender's camera angles and adjust those lighting nodes.
So it's writing the code locally, right on my machine.
Yes, but here is the critical safety mechanism. Hermes tests and logs that script within the confines of Agent Studio. It has a durable memory of the task state, but it is sandboxed.
So it can't break anything.
Exactly. It cannot just inject that script directly into your active Blender project without your explicit permission. You, the user, review the generated script, and if it looks correct, you take the script out of the soundproof room yourself and apply it to your project.
So it's a trusted collaborator, but one that operates within very strict, mathematically enforced boundaries. The user always maintains ultimate authority over the system.
It honors Murty BVNS's architectural mandate perfectly. It keeps knowledge and the creation of that knowledge entirely sovereign.
Because it's local.
Right. Because it's local. It can analyze your highly confidential workflows like an unreleased novel or proprietary code you're writing without you worrying about corporate espionage or your data being ingested into some global training set.
So what does this all mean? We've looked through the digital prism today. We've extracted the legacy code of Project Antaryami as it manifests in Shadowfetch Linux 2.1.1 Umbra. And what we found isn't just a new operating system. It's essentially a unified theory of modern computing.
It is absolute proof that the modern internet's bargain, the idea that you must trade your privacy for access to powerful tools, is a complete false dichotomy. The architecture exists to have both.
It's a reminder for you, listening right now, that your hardware is capable of complete independence. You don't need a monthly subscription to access top-tier 3D modeling or video editing or audio mixing suites.
You really don't.
And you don't need to feed your most vulnerable creative ideas into a cloud-based void just to get the benefits of an intelligent AI assistant. The tools to build a private, deeply capable, AI-assisted creative life are already here. They're housed in a single download, ready to run on the hardware you likely already own.
It places the responsibility and the immense power firmly back into the hands of the individual. It is the Gurukul built out of code.
It really is. And it leaves us with one final lingering thought to close out today's Gurukul session. We've established that this architecture gives you a private sanctuary, a craftsman's workshop, and an autonomous local AI agent with durable memory that learns your specific workflows.
A powerful combination.
But think about what that means for the fundamental definition of art and work. If your operating system is no longer just a passive tool that registers your keystrokes,
right.
If your private Hermes agent actively writes a script entirely on its own inside that soundproof room to help you perfectly render that 3D model in Blender, well, who is the true creator of the final image?